Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway took a big position in home builder stocks. Should you follow Warren? Let's talk about that. Welcome back, everybody. Don, Chris, and Thomas here today. We're going to talk home builders today. We're going to talk Warren Buffett. We're going to talk about what he's up to, guys. Welcome back. We're glad to have you. Lacey's not going to be here today. I'm filling in for her. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Great, Don.
Hey, last week, news came out that Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, was making a big play on the housing market. We did home builder video some time ago. I'll leave a link in the description for that one. But when Warren Buffett does something, whether it's buy more Apple or sell some craft or whatever he does, people tend to listen. We did a poll on YouTube about whether or not they would follow what Warren is doing in this specific situation. And the majority of them said, yeah, they're going to pay attention. Some said it didn't bother them at all. But Thomas, I'm going to ask you first. What do you think about this play for home builders? I know you've been kind of lukewarm most of the year on home builders. I know there's a lot of inventory built into their numbers. Just tell me what you think about this move and how you think that's going to play out.
Well, yeah, I've been a contrarian on the home builder trade all year. I mean, like you say, there's a lot of numbers playing into the results that to me point to this looming cliff where they're burning through backlogs, new orders are falling. And so at some point, they're not going to be able to produce this strength anymore. And I think that's going to be a headwind and a turning point for the market. So I've been kind of looking for a top to happen. Mm-hmm. I think as interest rates go up, that situation is only going to get worse. But still, there's this pent-up demand and stifled demand within the housing sector that's keeping some people buying. Certain number of folks don't care. They're just going to move anyway. Some folks have to move. You know, they have to have a house. They have to have a bigger house. They're going to move. Mm-hmm. And that's going to sustain some business. It's going to sustain at a lower level than we have now, but sustain for the long term. And the home builders can really generate a fair amount of cash. And I think they've done a lot of work to become more efficient over the last few years. And I would say probably that is what Warren Buffett is seeing is the cash flow. And then this long-term outlook for housing demand that's going to sustain the industry for, I mean, until we're old and gray. Right. Older and grayer, I should say.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't got a lot of the dark stuff left. Hey, Chris, I don't know that Thomas actually disagrees with Buffett. I think he's probably got a different point of view on that. Yeah. What do you see when you see a move like this? Because again, both of you guys have written about home builders on the site on MarketBeat numerous times. I don't remember seeing anything other than what Thomas just described. There's some backlogs that they're profiting from and so on and so forth. But what do you see in there?
You know, what I'm going to say right now isn't an original idea that I came up with, but I heard this week that, and it makes some sense. Don, you probably know this better than Thomas and I do, but there's the great relocation is still in place. People have picked up stakes and they've moved out of one area and moved to others. And we were just talking before we started taping that it's creating kind of winners and losers among the states. States like Florida, states like Texas certainly have been big winners in terms of that's where people are going to live. Other states they're fleeing from. So what I thought of a year ago was if all these people are moving to these states and there's the existing supply of homes isn't moving because people aren't selling the home that they're in, they need a place to live. So absolutely. They will likely, especially if they're selling a home from another area, they're likely to opt to have a home built regardless of where the way interest rates are, because you're moving into a home that's brand new. So at least you're not worrying so much about the maintenance costs right off the building. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't explain all the growth, but it makes some sense. And it explains to me why this may not be over just yet, because that's a backlog that they're going to be working through for some time.
I'm going to go ahead and share my viewpoint on this. I know I'm the host and supposed to be with you guys, but hey, here's where I stand, and I'm going to get personal about this because I live in Florida. I see a big crunch, if you will, in housing in existing homes, I should say. So for my way of thinking, it seems to me that he's buying in at a place where there's always going to be demand, at least in my state. You mentioned Texas. I'm sure that's the same way there. And I'll tell you why. Right now, I have a mortgage at 2.65%. There's no way I'm moving. There's nothing out there that's appealing to me that makes me want to take on a 7.25%. So
Yeah.
existing homes,
Right.
That
that
explains why.
inventory is just drying up.
That explains
At the
why
same-
it's going to dry
At
up.
the same time, we've got 1,200 people a day moving to Florida that
Yeah.
need a place to live. I can tell you that I can just drive 5 miles from my house and show you, I don't know, probably 15 different condominium complexes. People need a place to live. So for me, it looks like home builders like Lennar and Pulte, which are big in Florida, at least big everywhere, but they're really big down here. That's kind of just tapping into a market that's not going to go away anytime in the near future, because I don't see interest rates coming back.
Well, it's interesting
Don,
you
that-
bring up.
Yeah.
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead,
the
Thomas.
yeah, the multifamily angle, because the stocks that Warren bought, DHI, Lennar, and then NVR are all pretty big in multifamily construction. So, I mean, they're being supported by people that have to move and buy a house, but they're also building these multifamily units for the people that don't have anywhere else to go. So
Right.
they're kind of playing both sides of the market right now, it looks like.
It's an interesting perspective, Don, because where I live, we're not seeing that same wave of construction. I mean, there was probably more activity maybe a couple of years ago where you're getting a lot more calls and inquiries about selling your home and stuff like that. That doesn't seem to be as prevalent here where I live in Michigan, but it's still, it's interesting to hear from your perspective as somebody who's literally right in the heart of it. The way I look at it is, and I think you were alluding to this, Don, Buffett tends to play the long game.
Sure.
So even if it doesn't necessarily make sense to us, he's got access to a lot more data than we do, probably, I would imagine. And if the Redfin CEO who spoke this week is right, and the housing market has hit, as he said, rock bottom, there's only one direction for things to go. Now, I've said for a long time, you both have heard me say this, I don't think investors are as concerned about higher for longer interest rates. I think they just want to know when interest rates are going to stop rising. And
It's a great point.
they can manage, with higher interest rates. The example I used with you, Don, and I think Thomas, you were in that conversation too, is that, you go to the doctor with a nagging pain and the doctor says, well, the bad news is it's not going to get any better, but the good news is it's not going to get any worse. Investors can handle it's not going to get worse. They just want to know that it's not going to get,
Right.
they can handle it's not going to get better right away, but they don't want to hear that it's going to keep getting worse. And, so we're told not to try to time the market, but that's what institutional investors are doing all the time. The market's 6 to 8 months forward looking, and I think that's probably what is factoring into Buffett's calculation.
What you're talking about trying to time the peak of interest rates, and I think that that's a good point to make, because as somebody who might want to move, if I knew that the rates had peaked out, I wouldn't mind going to get a variable rate mortgage, because it's going to go down and down and down and down and down and down. Now, that factor in play, the Fed might not want to indicate a peak until the market capitulates, and it hasn't capitulated yet. Because if the Fed indicates a peak, what's going to happen? People are going to do what I just said. They're going to flock in and buy that house on a variable rate, banking on rates coming down. So,
Are we, guys, let me ask you both here, and then we'll just kind of try and wrap this up a little bit. But we talk about this with other sectors that we've talked about on the channel. Are we trying to establish a new normal here? I mean, if it's 7.25 now, are people just going to be happy at 4 or 5% call it a day?
Probably so. But I'm going to bring up something that my mom keeps reminding me of.
Okay.
My dad was in the Army, and when we moved back from Germany to Fort Bragg, and they bought a house in 1980, whatever it was, I think it was either that house or the one before Germany. one of those houses, their interest rate was 20%. That
Right.
used to be normal. Okay. So new normal today, things are changing, but it's not as bad as it was back in the old days.
Tell your dad I bought one at 18% one time.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's another story.
Yeah,
right.
Guys, let's just briefly touch on the three stocks that are three companies that Warren Buffett and Berkshire bought into real quick. Just give me your quick take. Each of you, if DR Horton is one, Lennar, and then NVR, like you said, of those three, I'm not going to ask you to pick one. We don't give financial advice here and never will. But of those three, which one would you look at before any of the others? Thomas, go first.
I think of the three, I would cut out NVR
Yes.
because DR Horton and Lennar both beat and raised guidance. NVR had a weaker quarter and didn't really do anything with their guidance. So just on those factors alone, I think that DHI and Lennar might be the better choices.
What do you think?
Yeah,
Chris?
I'm leaning with Thomas. I kind of like, if I had to pick one, I'd look at DR Horton. I mean, I like what they're doing with turning homes faster, reducing their inventory levels. This is going to what we were just saying earlier, is you've got to work through this backlog, and the companies that can do that the fastest are going to be in the best position. So, there you go.
Guys, thanks a bunch. This is an interesting conversation. We could probably go on, the three of us,
for
for another
sure.
hour or so, but we do have limits. Home builder stocks are something that we're going to want to watch going forward. We invite everyone to look at marketbeat.com. We write about home builders weekly. It's a massive sector, and Warren Buffett and Berkshire just proved they're into it as well. We'd like to invite everyone to MarketBeat. If this video has done anything to help you with home builder stocks or the direction they're going, or you like Warren Buffett, we'd appreciate a like on this video. I'm looking for 50 likes, might be fun on this one. If we've done anything to earn your subscription, we'd appreciate a subscription as well. We'll see you on the next one.